It's about that time, baby, baby. Oh, yeah. Here we go. Here we go.
The Sinclair Show is on.
It is on.
Running to your friends, come on.
Come on, come on.
It's a moment of the show tonight. Mailbag is tight. Sinclair is on the mic.
Once again, it's on. You're still troubled in your home. Got you tripping, don't know right from wrong. Send your letters to the show so we can talk you through. Get the answers to your questions because we speak that truth. Sometimes you doubt yourself, lost your health. Faith is on the fence, but you believe that Jesus knows your wealth. Keep it moving, spirit flowing because we're here to provide someone to lean on when you're falling. Wednesday 8 and 9 and it's on. Once again, it's on. You're listening to the only morning show at night, people. It's the Sinclair Show in partnership with WBISLP, Awesome Radio 106.9, and Greenville Pit Access Television TV 23. The Sinclair Show is sponsored by Carver Cigars. What's your Carver moment? And the Interdenominational Spiritual Training, where increasing your knowledge and relationship with God goes hand in hand. You can catch the Sinclair Show on Sinclair TV, GPAT TV 23. Check your local listings for times and dates. You can also watch on Facebook at The Sinclair Show. Man, what is going on, my people? I am glad to see each and every one of you out there in either TV land, radio land, however y'all are getting here. You know, the song said you can reach me by trailways and all them other formats. So y'all keep that in mind when you're trying to get up on the show. That's how we get down. Let me see. I'm trying to make sure I turn off everything because some of y'all do what you want to do when you want to do it, how you want to do it. But look here, we got a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. I want to begin by, matter of fact, let me see who out here all up in the place. I want to thank all of you all who continue to send your mailbag questions and comments to sinclairtalk@outlook.com. I'm going to continue to address as many as possible each night that I get on the air to reach you because y'all are the valued listeners, right? Now, for those of you, if you are in Kenya, I did get your emails. I am looking to make some adjustments on the YouTube so that y'all time frame will be a little bit more suited to you all for the live show, if you will. To my people out there in Colorado, I heard you, got you. I'll talk about it either tonight or next week. They know what I'm talking about. So anyway, let me see who's up here. First person on tonight on Facebook was Taya Matthews. What's going on, girl? Hey, y'all, let me ask y'all a question. No, I ain't even gonna talk about it tonight. I'm gonna let her ride tonight on that one. There go my brother Rod Jake. What's going on, big guy? Glad to see you here. Ty says she loves the hat. You know, every now and then I try to come out with something to give you guys something to talk about. Detective Pamela Black, of course, we're glad to see you. Annie Moore, what's going on, lady? Nikki Carter. Man, I thought for sure we had Stephanie Tillman, glad to see you. I thought for sure we had put Nikki Carter off the show. Essie Shepard, glad to see you. Yvonne Rouse, of course, I'm glad to see you. Y'all, there goes Chanelle Rouse. She's in the house tonight, probably somewhere at the cigar bar, but we're gonna send a shout out to all the people at whatever cigar bar she may be at tonight. How about that? But let's get back to this Nikki Carter. Nigga, didn't we ban you? Or I thought we kicked off the show. People, y'all, I need y'all to vote tonight if Nikki need to be suspended for about a good 2 weeks. No, Facebook allowed me to come back. Facebook can't allow you to come back to my show. They can allow you to be on Facebook. But Chanel said, nope, not tonight. All right, so she's chilling with us tonight. All right, we got some good topics anyway. But look here, people. If y'all want me to ban Nikki Carter for 30 days, y'all get to vote on it tonight. That's part of the vote on topic. And I'm telling you, if I get enough votes, matter of fact, if 10 people vote to ban Nikki for 30 days, she'll be banned for at least 30 days. And we ain't even got to see her up here with some of that negativity that she be spewing to the public. Nikki Carter says I deserve amnesty. Nah, I don't rock like that. So Nikki Carter got one person talking about let Nikki live. Look here. She been out here acting crazy on the show. There go my mama. Hey, mama. That's how we get down. Fake news. Oh, you want to get blocked tonight then. You want to get blocked right now. Anyway, people, look, as I told y'all, we got a lot of good topics tonight. And so one of the things I'm going to do is I toyed with this because I was trying to determine one, how I wanted to handle it. No, Nikki Carter, keep it interesting. Let me tell you something. All of y'all that's out here on the supporting Nikki Carter, I can ban y'all too. I can keep banning until it ain't nobody on the show but me. It ain't gonna bother me and my mama. But because we don't know about some of y'all anyway. But anyway, so let me tell y'all the choices we got. Would y'all like to have the most the deepest topic first? All right. Or would y'all like to have something lightweight? Y'all tell me. I'm prepared to deal with the deepest topic first because it's probably gonna take up the most time. So if y'all want to, we can rock with that. Hold on, Chanel. You've been out for a few days. Let me see. April said, let's see if Nikki can redeem herself. Probably not. All right, Taya said deep first. Let me see who else talking about it. Annie said the deepest. Rod said the deepest. All right. Look at that's all I needed to see right there. Let me see. Carson Ross, what's going on, my brother? Let me see. Cassandra Key, glad the little legal beagle is in. We might need her help on this. All right. So I got enough votes for the deepest. Now, I am convinced that every time you all find something that is controversial and deals with religion, it's always a bunch of y'all that want to send something to you want to DM me and force my hand to talk about it. And I believe it's because you believe that I won't talk about these things. You should know by now, I don't care nothing about that. All right. So tonight, we're going to start off with Creflo Dollar. Y'all done blew up my DM. Y'all want to talk about the fact that Creflo Dollar had a change of heart. And in his change of heart, he decided that he wanted to expound on his theory about tithing. All right. And so we're going to talk about this. And I'm look, I know to some of my clergy homies, I know some of them going to be mad. I know I'm probably going to have to get one of them little tricky phone calls that happen when people don't like what I say. But we going to rock with this tonight, all right? And I done prayed about it, so it's all good. Now, it says, Pastor Creflo Dollar admits he misled his congregation about tithing. All right. And it says he did a video. I'm assuming it was this past Sunday at his 30,000 member World Changing International that was titled The Great Misunderstanding. And he said, today I stand in humility to correct something I've taught for years and believed for years, he said in this video. He went on to explain that tithing is no longer relevant for the New Testament believers as it is the law of the Old Testament. Dollar cited Romans 6:14 to stress that Christians live under grace and not the laws of the Old Testament. Romans 6:14, it says, for sin shall not have dominion over you, for ye are not under the law, but under the grace. All right. Wow, here we go. We about to jump in. Carson said, I dislike Creflo Dollar. Chanel said, the same one who asked for your W-2s. All right. This is a topic that I struggle personally with. All right. Same. Okay. Listen, people. Let me listen. At least let me get in the water first. All right. It says, he said, I want to take you. He says, I want you to take a portion and put it aside. Now, if you want to give 10%, that's fine. But you know, he didn't say that. Dollar said in his June 26 video. Tithing is when you give 10% of your income to your local church. That is per a internal definition. Dollar says the manufactured 10% figure is the portion that's wrong. All right, so let me rock with this. All right. First, Chanel says she used to attend World Changes, so this is funny. All right, first of all, let me say this, Chanel. All right. Everybody is capable of making a change or a turnaround. And so, what we are talking about tonight is not whether or not you like Creflo, World Changing Ministries, or any of that. What I am talking about in this specific instance, and I'm saying this because I don't want y'all to get off topic, is Creflo Dollar on June 26th, when he shot this video, he made the statement to his congregation that after reviewing things, okay, Cassandra said, world changes is changing. That's a good thing. Absolutely, Cassandra. Let me see. We got Gwendolyn Lady Elegance Pritchard. Good evening. Hey, we glad to see you. And so I want you all to at least broaden your minds for the next few minutes so we can talk about what he was explaining. And for those of you, if you can broaden your mind, you're going to rock with me with this for a few minutes. And if you disagree, I'm fine with it. But I can validate to you what Creflo Dollar was saying in relation to tithing. He was not saying that you shouldn't. As a matter of fact, for all of those pastors and bishops and clergy that came out forcefully and aggressively talking about he was lying, misleading people, he was switching the game up on them and all this, either you all did not listen to what he said or you are blatantly wrong, because what he defined is factual. And the frustration sometimes with the general public or with those individuals who attend churches on a consistent basis is that sometimes it appears that we are arguing too much about finances. Now, what Creflo described in his statement to his congregation was that there was no specific percentage that you are required to contribute. And he said he was making the change in tone because under the New Testament, and for those of you who are not as familiar with the Bible, whichever one you so choose, the Bible most known to Americans would be probably the King James Version. There's an Old and a New Testament. And so the thing that Cassandra said, what you tithe is not going to determine your afterlife. Absolutely. And we'll get to that in a minute. So what Creflo was saying is 100% right. That the percentage is the issue that he had. And he said that the requirement or the pressured influence of a person to give 10% is wrong, and it is not in line with what the New Testament prescribes. And so people were upset about it. But the defining point for me was, you can't go anywhere in the New Testament and find where a percentage is being required. Okay. Now it does talk about giving. And so let's chip away at some of these things for a second, so that at least whatever decision that you make about how you feel after tonight, you are able to make that decision based on some understanding. Now, the word tithing comes up in the Old Testament as a translation from Hebrew, deriving from the Old English root tithe, meaning 1/10. Okay. And within the Old Testament agriculture economy, tithes were paid to lords as an expression of thanks and dedication from farmers. While today we associate tithes as 10%, in the Old Testament, tithes actually occurred
2 times each year and 3 times every 3rd year. Throughout the Old Testament, tithes were given by the patriarch Abraham and Jacob, and a system of tithes was created in the laws of God, giving through Moses. So first of all, understand tithes, what they were, how they came about, when they were actually paid back then. Now, it says the children of Israel also came under fire for failing to give tithe to God in Malachi 3:18. But what about tithing in the New Testament? Because this is what Creflo Dollar was speaking about. Well, it should be noted that in the New Testament, it never applies the tithe to believers, though the idea of tithes can still be found in it. For example, in 2 Corinthians 9:6-10, Christians are called to generously give in response to the gospel of the Lord Jesus based on faith in God as a provider. Now, I'm saying this to you all because there is a passage, Malachi 3:8-12. It says, we're a mere mortal rob God. And this version I'm giving to you all is not the King James version. It says, we're a mere mortal rob God, yet you rob me. But you ask, how are we robbing God? In tithes and offerings, you are under a curse, your whole nation, because you are robbing me. This is one passage. Okay. And so as we talk about tithes, 2 Corinthians says each one must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. This is what Creflo Dollar was talking about. He said when you got to the New Testament under grace, that the standard for giving, he never said do not give. And let's talk about that for a second, people. I don't personally care how much you give. I don't care if you give. That's between you and God. But to understand the purpose of it might help you determine if you feel like you should be giving at all. First of all, for those of you who frequent a religious establishment, look at it like a business. You cannot have a business where there is lights, water, heat, and air if there is not some revenue that is taking up in order to pay for those services. Would we all at least agree on that? And if the answer to that is yes, then I don't believe we're in an argument about should someone give to the church. Because if you are getting something out of going to that religious establishment, and you believe, my boy Carson said, yes, we can at least agree to that. And if you believe that when you go to fellowship, you would like to have some minor level of comfort, meaning you want to have a comfortable place to sit, you want to have heat, air, and water, bathrooms accessible, you and I both know that regardless to where you go, if you have those things, it would have to be taken care of by somebody. And we know that the church does not, in many cases, not all, because some have other forms of revenue that they generate, be it through daycares or schools or other things. But generally, churches, smaller churches in the South do not have a lot of services that would render them to be able to generate revenue. So if they're not generating revenue and you want this physical location, we can all agree, I would assume, or most of us would, in order to provide for that establishment, some money must be generated. Okay. Nigga said, then call it what its purpose is to maintain the church. You know what, Nikki? Let me say this before I move forward. I don't think anybody's ever told you that it wasn't for that purpose. Now, if you never asked or if you never went to a quarterly meeting or anything like that, don't blame the church because you didn't know what your church was doing with the money. But that's for a different day. So I'm gonna keep it light with you on that. And then the church has a responsibility for to assist those within the community who are in need. Would we agree that that's a service that should be a requirement of the church? Because if you are spreading the gospel and you know that there are people in the community who are in need, that support should not always be forced to come from the government. Sometimes it should be forced to come from those religious organizations, and many of them do an excellent job. I'm not saying all, but many of them, especially smaller churches, seem to sometimes do more than larger churches. So can we at least agree that the churches should be providing a service for the community when there are those in need, and that if a church is to have a physical structure, it must be financially provided for? Can we at least agree on those two principles? So, okay, so we got a couple that's out here agreeing. Now, if you can agree to those things, we don't have to argue about whether or not the church needs to take up and collect revenue in some form or fashion. I think the challenge, and while I blatantly do not like some of the ways that Nikki Carter expresses herself, she may be onto something, because some people are unclear of what the money goes to when they hear tithes, offering, this offering is taken up at this time, 2 or 3. Some people get leery, if you will, because their knowledge base as it relates to what transpires can be lacking. And so I'll say this to the parishioners, I'll say this to the leaders of churches out there. It is your responsibility to make clear what transpires so that a person won't feel reluctant to do what, and I like to call this one's reasonable service. Okay, because if you believe that there are elderly and senior people and potentially single mothers in the community that may need assistance from the church, you know the church can't go and grow money trees. If they could, we'd all have one. So our reasonable service, based on how God has blessed each of you, is that you do what it says in 2 Corinthians. And this is what Creflo was talking about. It doesn't say a percentage. It says each one must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, meaning not under pressure, for God loves a cheerful giver. So when it tells you that you decide, based on whatever your spiritual walk is, based on however God has blessed you and however you feel about the church organization that you are frequenting and the service that they provide both internally and to the community, it's saying that's how you should be given. Dr. Beverly Key, glad to see you. Does that make sense to you all, at least so far? Again, we're getting away. We're not even going to talk about the name right now. And we're not talking about the percentage, because the only thing that Creflo said, and I must confess, in my past, I've not been a Creflo fan. Okay. Cassandra said that's what she's always done anyway. Okay. Great. Taya says she can agree with that. Big Rod said he can agree. See, people, this is progress. And I want you guys to understand. That's why, because I wasn't always a fan of Creflo Dollar, quite honestly, I don't listen to him. I probably would not even know about this if so many of you hadn't sent it in. But I live my life from the principle of, if somebody is saying something that is accurate, just because I might not care for them or something that they've done in the past, doesn't mean that I can't support what I believe to be truth. And all he did for his particular congregation was define for them that they were no longer obligated to pay tithes in the form of a percentage of 10%. And he went back and made the clarity. Rod said it's the messenger, it's the message, not the messenger. You're absolutely right, Big Rod. And so when he went back and made clarity and said, you're no longer operating under the Old Testament and the Mosaic law, that you are operating under grace. If you understand and read and study and you subscribe that these things to be true, he didn't say anything wrong. He did not tell you all not to give. He didn't tell you that you shouldn't tithe. He didn't say that everything you heard in the past was a lie. He said, because he had promoted the 10% thought process, that he was wrong for that, and that once he studied and focused on what the New Testament said, that yes, you should still give, but you should give cheerfully, and you should only be given what you want to freely, and it should be based on how God has prospered you. Now, I had got into a disagreement with one of my mentors today, and she's a very, very intelligent woman. She has been a religious leader for many, many years. And she and I got into this controversial thought process because she described the percentage and the giving piece based on what your abundance was the phrase that she used. Okay. What I said to her is, and I'll be very, very clear with this. Nikki said, less pressure on the congregation. Well, at least that's something that's balanced, you said. Here's what I said to her about the abundance comment. Abundance is a theory that is defined differently from one person to the next. And so as I was telling her about the tithes is not based on what you earned. The tithes, according to, if you read, it speaks about what you have. It is your overage. Okay. And I say that because God does not expect you, nor can anyone show you where God would expect you to take money from your obligations. Meaning, you've got life obligations, your bills, your cost to live. I'm not talking about your wants. I'm not talking about all your fringes. I'm not talking about all those extra things that we do. I'm talking about what you should be giving a percentage of should be those things above what your obligations are. And that's where she and I had a difference of opinion, because she believed it was all inclusive. And I believe that it is whatever God has blessed you in terms of your abundance. If you go and research, it clearly states that it is speaking about those abundance is above what your obligations or life needs are. And that's the only difference. And I wanted to make that clear. You all can study and research for yourself so that you have some baseline to determine what you're comfortable with. And I gave the analogy of this. Okay. God does not want one of our senior citizens, anyone who's on a budget, anyone who earns a certain amount of money. He doesn't want you to take your light bill money, go give it to the church in the form of a tithe envelope, get your lights turned off, and then go back and have to ask the church to then support you. God doesn't want to put you, and I think you guys believe that some people believe that God is that petty, but he ain't. He doesn't need you to prove that you believe in him by allowing your lights and water to get turned off, and then humbling or humiliating, whichever one your mind believes, yourself by going and begging the church to go get your lights turned back on. That's not how God operates. And so when you're talking about a percentage, the percentage is, as you all quoted, is in your abundance. Abundance cannot be defined as your bill money. Bill money / obligation money is not the abundance piece. When you talk about things like reasonable service, it is not reasonable for a person to say, in order to prove I'm a good Christian, I'm going to take that which could cause me to lose my home and run it down and put it in somebody else's hand. And when they put a note on my door that says you're going to be evicted, I go back to the place that I gave the money to and said, I'm a good Christian. Will you give me that money back so I don't lose my home? That ain't what God wants. The God that I rocks with ain't that petty. He don't even ask nothing of people like that. And so we must be careful that we don't convolute the concepts of what Creflo was talking about on the 26th. All he said was that individuals are not required to pay the numerical sum of 10%. Your abundance might allow you to pay more than 10%. It might have you paying less. Remember, there are several stories within the Bible where one person has an enormous amount of money, but he gives it with a hardened heart. Somebody else may only have $1 and they give that $1, but they give it free willingly with thanks and with cheer. And God is more pleased with the individual who gave the $1 because he doesn't care about the sum. It's the intent of your act. And so I want you guys to process this. Let me see what we got. Antone Jenkins, glad to see you. Let me see what we got. GD Deshaun Green, glad to see you. Latiana Matthews, of course, is always glad to see you. And so I'm doing this tonight. I wanna make sure that you guys process this because, again, I don't have to like Creflo to tell you that he's 100% right. And I don't care if there's some preachers out there, some parishioners, some bishops, some elders. I don't care who disagrees with me. I challenge you to go find it and show me that I'm wrong. See, because I do exactly what it says. I study for myself, so you can't bamboozle me. Again, here's the sticking points that I want y'all to leave with. It is your reasonable service. Hold on for a second. Anymore said, well, the pastors of these churches, including my pastor, should go back and explain to their congregation about the paying of tithes because of what we've always been told. I don't disagree with you that we as leaders of religious organizations have an obligation, especially now that it's been brought to the forefront, that we remove the confusion. And I think that what happens is when you look at it, most of them probably don't focus on the 10% anyway. But if they do, then we all need to go back and examine, because again, your abundance, meaning the amount that you have above your bills, that God is saying, if you're going to give and give cheerfully, that amount may be greater than. You may be able to help and assist the community greater through your church, but it does require clarity. And it requires that we are not afraid to have discussions that go against something that has been taught for years, and to provide an explanation for which we are willing to stand on. And it's not an easy topic. Most people wouldn't touch it. I can tell you, I had at least 3 people today to tell me, hey, don't rock with this. Let this one go. But I'm not doing a service to you all. I can't sit up and say, hey, I rocks with Jesus and me and him, we cool like that. Rod said, I think some will challenge the 10% because they will lose some revenue in the church. Rod, you're right. You're absolutely right. But I think if we educated people so that they understood, you might get more people who do not tithe who would tithe something. Because if I don't think I got 10% and I think you looking at my tithe envelope to see how much I put in there, and then now we've got a record that I didn't do the 10% and I'm looking like, oh, I'm embarrassed because I didn't do it because you said the 10%. Imagine how many people might pick up a tithe envelope and give whatever percentage that they had of their abundance and do it as a cheerful giver when they know that nobody said you have to give the 10%. You are supposed to provide. And again, let's not confuse this. You should be given, as it says in the Bible. And there's reasons why you should be given, because we've already agreed that the church can't have the doors open, lights on, heat, air, and utilities without there being some income. And we've all agreed that the church has a responsibility to be a support to the community for which you have people in need. So we already agreed with that. Cassandra said, I bet Creflo gets more followers. It will balance out for his church. I agree. And so we're going to move on from this topic, but I wanted to address it. And for those, hold on, we got something. Let me see what Tithe said. She said, so many times I've heard people give the 10% of their gross income before taxes and then not be able to take care of their repetitive expenses. And the response from other members of the congregation is God will provide. If God provided you with a job to take care of yourself, didn't he already provide? Why are you misappropriating what have already given you? All right, let me lightly touch that. I don't want to get into so much trouble. Whew, and don't forget to repass. All right, you're right. So let me say this. Wow. Again, Ty, you are right, and I think that part of the dilemma we face is that knowledge is the greatest power of all, but you should not be leaving it up to your church leaders to educate you on what God has for you and your spiritual walk. If you were reading for yourselves, you wouldn't have a problem asking questions. Many of you do not go to quarterly meetings. You do not go to church meetings. You don't review the documents that they provide. So if I was to ask many of you, how much does it cost for your church to operate from one Sunday to the next, many of you might not know. And so before we just jump all the way down the church leaders' throats for pushing the 10% number, we also need to hold ourselves accountable for the fact that if you go to church more and if you attend the meetings and make yourself active, you will find that a lot of the information is self-explanatory. Yvonne said, tithing is one way believers show gratitude for all that God provides us daily. Absolutely. Yvonne has just gave y'all a clear definition, and it's in line with what Creflo said. And it's also in line with 2 Corinthians when it says each one must give as he has decided in his own heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves the cheerful giver. You know what God has done for you greater than anybody else. And whatever he has done and whatever is coming from your abundance, you should be able to do it and hold your head up high. Nobody should make you feel inferior for giving or not giving if you don't have it. And it is shame on any leader who is operating a church that made a person feel like you shouldn't walk through the door if you don't have anything to put in here, because tithes don't get you to heaven. And believe it or not tithing ain't gonna send you to hell. What it will do is, for those who can and do not tithe, and we're not talking about the 10%, we're talking about tithing or giving in general. When people do not give, the church's ability to continue with the mission is hampered, and their ability to support those in need is limited as well. So I just want you guys to be clear on the 10% that Creflo spoke about. He was 100% right. He did not tell people not to tithe. He said to tithe, and tithe as God has prospered you, and tithe in a cheerful manner so that you can continue to be blessed. I'm going to leave it at that, because I already know that I'm going to catch some hate mail on this, but I hope that I have provided you guys some clarity. Ty said, oh, they're going to come for you, but I'm with you. I hope that I have provided you guys some clarity, so at least you understand that Andre said, I'm late, but I concur with Creflo on this one. That's a common practice with the Church of Christ. Absolutely, my dear brother. Andre, we're glad that you were able to make it. So again, I hope that spiritually I have done what God would require of me by educating you all that it is both necessary and it is your reasonable service, but that you should be giving from what God has prospered you in your abundance, and do it with a happy heart, and it will reflect to others as well. If you got any questions about it, obviously you can hit me up and I can give you some areas that you could go read for yourself. But I'm about everybody getting their own knowledge, because nothing I have said today is going to change you if you don't believe it. And if you don't believe it, or if you believe something different, then we should all be studying and we could get on at least some agreeable terms. So don't hate on Creflo because he said this. I'm pretty sure he's done enough stuff in the past that you can latch on to that was less than favorable. But when an individual comes full circle and apologizes for something that he has misled you on, then those stripes aren't his to bear. Okay? For those of you gonna snitch on me, I ain't gonna say no names, but I did this online, so I knew people would get it. My shoulders is broad enough to rock with this. I prayed about it before I did it. All right, woo, let's cut that one out and let's go to something else. Let's go to something a little bit lighter. All right, let's see. Here we go. Nope, we're not going to that one. Let's go to this one. All right, so we're going to be dealing with right now a letter that was sent in. We're going to call this the case of the bottle, the marriage, and the decision. 25 years, 2 kids, and a hangover later. How do we handle something? So the letter says, Dear Sinclair, I've been with my husband for 25 years. We've got 2 adult kids. We've only been married for 8 years, and most of those years have been filled with disagreements. The only time he wants to talk is when he's drunk, and that leads to most of our arguments. When we were younger, we both enjoyed partying, but as I got older and grew closer to God, I no longer wanted to be a part of that scene. Okay? And it says, I don't think he sees my tears even when they fall as he looks at me. This has led to the point that I just want out, but he wants us to work on it. My question is, how can we work on it if he's not willing to talk sober? Signed, an unseen wife. All right. Woo. Let me see who we got in here. Johnny Key, what's going on, my brother? Yeah, you're a little late, but hey, better to be late in here than not at all. All right, so first of all, this is a sensitive subject. You're dealing with a lot of different things, And to the author of this, obviously, we're glad that you frequent the show and that you've invited us to have some dialogue about your real life issue. Now, this is a lady who says she's been in a relationship with her now husband for 25 years, yet they have only been married for 8. She says they have 2 adult kids, and that at one point, and let's make this clear, fellas, at one point she used to party and drink with him. Okay. But she no longer, she grew with, whether it was she got older, whether it was she gathered a different spiritual walk, whatever occurred in her life. And I'm going to attach it to her spiritual walk, because she says, when we were younger, we both enjoyed partying, but as I got older and grew closer to God. So she got older and decided she didn't want to be drinking all the time. She didn't want to be getting high. She wanted her life to be in a more mature state of being. And so, but apparently he hasn't grown in the same manner. So let me address that part first to the unseen wife. Unfortunately, you are holding your husband to a standard that was not the initial agreement. Now, you have a right to grow. You have a right to expect change within yourself. The issue is you made a commitment years ago when you were younger, and both of you enjoyed the same particular lifestyle. Okay. Nikki Carter says she changed and he didn't. Well, ain't that obvious? And so, because when you made the commitment to be in the long-term relationship and subsequent marriage, you guys agreed that it was possible because both of you had the same goals. Both of you had the goal of, we're going to have a good time. We're going to party. We're going to do it together. Everything is everything. And the relationship wasn't bad because y'all was on the same page. Okay. Now, the issue then was 25 years ago. And I often say this, if I could, I would tell people don't get married until you get 45 or 50. But it goes against our logic because people get married and they want to have families and all that. But you haven't grown into what you're going to be at 25, 20, at sometimes 30 years old. You have not become the person, the level-headed individual, or maybe not level-headed, but you haven't become that individual yet. Okay? Cassandra says she's not about that life anymore, and he still is. She just now feeling this way. I don't know that, because she did not define for us in her letter, Cassandra, when she had this transformational period. And I'll say this as a counselor for many, many years now, that one of the issues is there are times when you are in relationships and there becomes this change. But people don't automatically jump and move when they get mad about something. Sometimes we falsely believe as human beings that if I stay in this situation long enough, that person will hear me and they will change, and they don't. And so I don't know if this is where Cassandra was going when she said, is she just now feeling this way? She could have felt this way 10 years ago, and she could have easily said, well, maybe if some people, and it generally doesn't work. Excuse me. And I say this when I'm counseling people, you can't pray somebody to being better than what they want to be. They got to work for themselves. But we have put this stigma on people that you're supposed to stay in unproductive relationships and marriages specifically. And we have made them feel almost bound to that. And we found scriptures and all these other things. Well, let me say this. And I told y'all, God is not petty. Now, God will hold you accountable for a decision he didn't tell you to make that you made. Okay. Michelle Branch, glad to see you. Loretta Battle, glad to see you. So I want you guys to understand, sometimes people stay in relationships that are counterproductive to life and spirituality because they are pressured from society, from family and friends. And sometimes they honestly believe, I care enough about this person. Maybe they're going to get better. Maybe they're going to do better. Now, because many of you out there have been through enough relationships where you say it ain't going to work, the person ain't going to get no better. Each individual is entitled to give as much time as they can bear until their shoulders can't take the pressure anymore. So she's not wrong for staying for as long as she can, but she must understand that you made a commitment when you were incapable of keeping to the obligation. Let me give you all an example. You know how many times people go down to a car lot and they see a car that their credit will allow them to get, but they know for a fact they can't really afford it. And they get this car. And this car, it makes them feel good all the way until the first bill comes. And now they're sitting around because they got 48 or 60 months worth of payments that they don't know how they're going to make. They've signed a contract to the obligation of it. And because they don't want nobody to see them get their car repossessed, they're out here robbing Peter to pay Paul because they entered to an agreement that they knew they could not, or they had reason to know that they could not adhere to it, but they did it anyway. And so they find themselves miserable with a car that's cute that they can't afford. It's no different than going into a marriage when you are ill prepared as a human being, or you are ill prepared in terms of your maturity, or you are ill prepared in terms of, are we evenly yoked? Are we on the same walk? If those things, if you haven't grown up yet, then making a life commitment where people be walking around talking about to death do your part and all that. Yeah, that sounds great. What they really should be saying is until you get as miserable as you possibly can, and then you're going to leave. And so making that commitment, signing that contract for that car you can't afford, signing that marriage certificate on a relationship that you want to hold to a standard when you are immature because you're not thinking, I'm going to grow out of this at some point. And if your husband is not growing out of it, he's still comfortable with doing the same things he was doing before. Now you have to make a decision that only you can make. And that decision is, what does a person do when in this case, and let me be fair to the husband for one specific reason. She describes him as having a drinking condition, and that is a illness. Now, you cannot make someone get treatment. They have to want to. And if she's not indicated as to whether or not she has asked him about it. And so to the person that wrote this letter, there is some information that you omitted that will make it impossible for me to give you a recommendation that would be viable. I don't know what you guys have already tried. I know you say he wants to talk, but whenever he wants to talk, he's in that bottle. You have to understand that your husband has a medical condition that happens to be in the bottle. And in order for you to leaving someone, you must know that you can deal with the pressure that comes with leaving someone with a medical condition. Because if you were worried about what the public was going to think before, you are certainly going to be worried about it if somebody says, oh, yeah, she knew he had a drinking problem from the start and she left him when he was at his worst. People don't care if you at the house getting choked, beat, humiliated, and she has not pointed any of those in place. So let me be clear. I'm giving a broader statement. The author of this did not imply that there was any physical abuse. I do believe there is at least emotional abuse because she talks about how often she is crying in front of him. So I don't want you guys to jump off the bridge and say, oh, yeah, he might be putting his hands on her. That is facts, not in evidence. She does not imply that. I will say to the author, there is a lot of information that you did not provide to us. So to be fair to the situation, I'm not going to give you a recommendation of any sort tonight. If you want to share more information, I can tell you the who, what, when, where, and whys that we would need to know in order to be able to effectively discuss it. But I will say that part of what you are dealing with is you decided you wanted your life to change. He has not decided that he is uncomfortable with whatever the status quo is. If it's partying, if it's drinking, if it's doing, he's still okay with it. And he made an agreement with you 25 years ago when you were okay with it. So he has a right to feel like, why should I change when we got together and we was like this? You have a right to feel the way you do because you have changed. And that's why the decision is going to be very tough for you, because you willfully entered into that contract with him, knowing the conditions of, quote unquote, the relationship or the automobile, if you will. And so you want out of the contract, but the condition of the car that you bought is still the same. It's the same color. It rides the same. You just have upgraded spiritually and emotionally, and the car no longer suits you because you don't want to ride around in that kind of car when you're not that kind of person anymore. And that's the difficulty of this, because you're not required to be miserable. We should expect that growth will come, but we have no reason to hold somebody to our expectation when that's not what they agreed to initially. Look, people, this is definitely was a tough one to have to peel away at, because often it is women. And let me say this to my brothers out there. Brothers, we go through a lot of stuff too. Okay. Let me see what Cassandra said. She said, and maybe he does not have a drinking problem. She may see it as a drinking problem because she doesn't do it. And he may feel that that is the only time and way he can talk to her. We need more information. I concur, Cassandra. We do need more information. And that's the reason why I am refraining from providing any type of solution or direction tonight, as I might normally do, is because there's too many things that we don't know. And as I often tell you all, we are better to postpone giving some advice and ask for further clarity than we are to give advice that somebody might take and it could put them in a worse situation. So I definitely want you, I hope you guys can respect the fact that I am not going to provide that. But I'll say this to her and anybody else, male or female. Relationships are something that we break our necks to get into, and we put on blinders to those things that are uncomfortable about a person because we want that relationship. And as soon as the newness, just like that car, wears off, we're forced to deal with those very things that existed at the time when we bought the car. Okay. You just like you wouldn't keep a car for 20 or 30 years. Well, I got a car outside that's pretty old, but be mindful of you're dealing with a human being, and there may come a day where for your own sanity that you do need to make a decision about whether to walk away. If you have done your best, and this is for anybody, this is not dealing with that situation. The determining factor for whether or not you've done your best is when you look in the mirror and you are honest with yourself, or if you surround yourself with people who are honest and they have told you that you have done those things that you possibly could. Walking away is not the end of the world. It is sometimes better than holding a person emotionally hostage and making them miserable for the rest of their life. Ty said, I think it's unrealistic to think that people are not going to change over 25 years, even in a small way. Hey, you're right. I agree with you. And Ty, let me make this my last point. I agree that she had a right to change and to grow. And we are proud of her for doing that. I'm not certain that you have a right to expect somebody to change, because in many cases, one of the arguments that we make as human beings is, oh, well, this dude don't do the same thing that he used to do when I met him. And guys be like, well, she don't do the things she used to do when I met her. So to some degree, we are sitting around here and we're making it unclear on what is relationship worthy. Because do you want a woman that still treats you like she used to when you first met her? Do you want a man that treats you like he treated you when he first met you? But then you saying you changed and he changed. What do you want? Do you want the same or do you want different? I can't tell you. We'll pick it up next week, people. Y'all be safe out there.
It's about that time, baby. Oh, yeah. Here we go.